heard any member of the legislature. Maybe I missed it on their Facebook, but I have not heard officially anyone speak out against that. In fact, I believe the chief inspector of the police said that this was a win for victims. And I'm not a victim, but I have friends who are victims. And I know that it's not a win when I have a friend who, for the last 30 years of her life, has been dealing with the effects of her trauma. And to watch a predator, you know, and I'm not trying to make this about the individual, I'm just saying it for what it is. To watch a predator receive a 5-year sentence when she has been dealing with this for 30 years. She can't escape it. She can't serve a time and then go on with her life. So I'm asking our legislature, our members of parliament, to think about that. And I want to know how they feel about it. I want to know if they are prepared to make this a priority, if they will work with the community. I think that it is a matter of public importance. It's not a political matter. I'm not here to politicize it. It doesn't matter to me which party decides to take this on. It just needs to be done. And because I don't sit in the House, I don't have that platform, but they do. So I'm coming to them.
Well done.
Well done.
Yes.
Sure.
Okay. Okay.
It's a little hot today, you know what I'm saying?
Okay, so could you just state your name and then say your reason for being here today?
You were a member of parliament. You were a member of parliament.
Will that affect you?
And how do you feel about this issue?
You could go on that side.
Just because I was a member of parliament and fought
Okay. Hi, my name is Winnie Crockle, and I'm basically here at Parliament today to advocate for our children and for victims of sexual abuse. As you know, this week we saw another case where a offender was given a 5-year sentence, which is inadequate. And so myself and other members of the community decided that instead of just talking about it on Facebook and social media, we would just come and talk to our elected officials because one, they represent us and this is a matter of concern for us, and two, they have the ability to affect change in a more powerful way. They can legislate harsher sentences. So that's what we're here to ask for.
What would you have in mind in terms of what they would legislate?
Well, what I'm using
constitute as sufficient, if.
Well, I think that's all a matter for consultation, and I certainly am not a professional in that capacity. However, I'm using the Firearms Amendment Act of 2010 as a benchmark legislation, or a precedent-setting legislation. In that piece of legislation, they provided a schedule of punishments for certain firearm offenses, and so I would be looking for something of that nature.
Okay, thank you so much.
No problem.
Over the last 20 years. One of them who reoffended said, I've done the program, I understand how to say no and when I should, I just couldn't stop myself. And as a result, the question might be, after 2 years, after 3 years, after 4 years, what is the program that's been put into place? What is the program that's been implemented that is going to ensure that they have complete backup and support once they're out? For example, we have an AA program where individuals go to AA because they recognize they constantly need help and support. What type of support, what type of help are we offering those pedophiles in order for them, once they've been released, to constantly have backup support to stop them from re-offending? That, in this particular case, is my concern. 2 years, is it long enough for a program? Is it long enough for that individual to understand their behavior? No, it's not. Number two is, once he's out and once any other pedophile out, what is the system and what have we put into place? So I'm here to support the organization that has established this. I look forward to more people coming out and speaking their minds. It is adamant, and I am adamant, as a survivor, and I'm going to say I'm a survivor. As a survivor, I recognize I will never, ever not suffer the consequences mentally. And it's not that I'm asking for the perpetrators to suffer their life. I'm asking they're given an opportunity to understand their illness, number one, and to get help, number two, for life.
You had long been a proponent for the making of the sex offenders register
Yes.
to go public.
Yes.
Do you think in hindsight that perhaps the focus should have been on ensuring that individuals, pedophiles, sex offenders, the focus should have been on them receiving the treatment whilst incarcerated and the support whilst upon release?
Gary, that's a very good question. If you reflect back on any of the times I stood up and spoke on the issue, I did just that. I said it's extremely important for education. We must educate society so that when a pedophile is out, they will understand how to handle and how to deal. Because one of the things that was first and mostly paramount, I believe, in the minister when they were looking at the Criminal Code Act, because that is where the Criminal Code Act comes into place. When a minister has the capability of notifying the public of someone that may cause potential harm, in this particular case, we've seen now that the new government have indeed embraced that. We have seen the fact that we've been notified, so I am happy with that. I am not happy that there's not a public register, and the reason or the argument for that public register is that there will be a concern that people will go underground. I have heard that since 2003, but again, every time I spoke on the issue, I also spoke on the issue of what programs have been established within the prison. If you'll recall, for a long time there was no program in the prisons, and yet they were still releasing pedophiles, and in some cases without even notifying the family. We've seen that over the past few years, and as a result, it is time to take a look at the entire package if we are serious about protecting our families. And I do mean that, because every time a child is affected, the family is affected. In cases where it was a family member, how does that family go on? So if there's not an established system where everyone has to fall back, SCARS is doing an exceptionally good job at stepping in when the time is required. They do a great job at educating. But until we realize that this is not going to go away, that we'll continue to have pedophilia and recognize what it is and treat it as what it is, that we'll continue having a repeat.
Very much. How are you?
I'm good. My name's Christine DaCosta. I just found out about the rally, so I've come largely unprepared, but I just want to say while listening to a few people speak here today that we've spoken a lot about the predator and healing the predator and what we're going to do to protect them yet again. But in reality, the life sentence, as Ms. Holzhauser mentioned, really and truly is for the victims. I too am a survivor on multiple levels. I'm not going to get into the details of my case right here, right now, but one of my predators was my high school teacher. And because I was one day over the age of 15, the Bermuda law does not consider me to be a child. And in my opinion, anyone in the school system or in an influence where they are under a position of power, it is 100% wrong. So we need to move away from talking about the predators, protecting the predators. I agree that we do need to rehabilitate them. Figuring out what that sentence is definitely a discussion point. But there are so many intricacies to the Bermuda law that just truly do not protect children. We have not given enough. We give a little slap on the wrist, and we haven't given enough of a punishment to deter this from happening, because the reality is you are not going to change the fact that somebody is going to try to do it. We can change the community by educating them to understand that you have a duty to disclose, that you have a duty to report, educating the community that a 16-year-old adolescent is still a child. We are not majors until we are 18 years old, and a married male teacher should not be able to engage in sexual relations with a student. Now, obviously, that is getting into details of the law, but I have been myself and members of SCARS, I know Debbie Ray Rivers has been working quite heavily here in trying to get the age of consent amended. Because Bermuda, you may not realize this, but if your sons or daughters are between the age of 16 and 18, they are not protected by the law. It is legal. It is legal for a predator to groom your child, which I may add, comes many years before that child is 18. The grooming process happens over a number of years. I can speak to this from experience. I have been paying for my own rehabilitation over the last 20 years or longer. Let's talk about how we're going to heal our victims. And the only way to protect them is to ensure that predators get the help that they receive by not being members of this community, by making sure that people are going to think twice about acting because the laws are tight enough that they will have severe consequences for their actions. Thank you for letting me.
Yes, well done.
I mean, I can add to that. Places like Senegal, they have 10-year. Yep. Christine Acosta, Oh, you want me to hop now? What are you looking for?
No, I just want to know. I'm with the Royal Kids.
Oh, okay.
So you are with
I wouldn't say Debbie didn't ask me to come, so maybe
so not doing that.
I wouldn't. Just because I don't want her to think.
So just remember,
Yeah.
Thanks to ensure that predators get their just sentences, protection for our children, protection for those who get a sentence after this is their life. So we don't believe that drug offense should
Right. Not in the city.
Hey, that's not nice.
Not
Especially. Not because it's the work, it's actually.
Oh, yeah.
Not today.